this is my husband.
I'm Rev Kev. I still got my job. She didn't fire me from the last episode from talking too much. So I still got my job, but I'm not talking like that this one. Just here to support.
Thank you for your support as always, and thank you for joining us once again for another episode on the Rich Couch. And this is actually our last episode on the honeymoon phase, talking about some of our early lessons learned in our first few years of marriage. There will be more to come. We're still going to be talking about relationships and relationship goals, couple goals. We'll still be talking about those different things. But this is the last one wrapping up what we, Kevin and Deborah, have learned.
And remember, don't forget, here on the Rich Couch, you want to enrich your
relationships.
You want to enrich your conversations.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Enrich your conversations.
You want to enrich your conversations, enrich your relationships, and enrich your life.
That's what we want to do.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so today we are talking about intimacy. I saved the best one for last. I think this is such a really important context and a really important conversation to have with us as a couple and with other couples who are newly married or newly engaged, and you're getting married very soon, or maybe you are about to celebrate your 1-year anniversary. So this is just a really great topic to bring up. But anyway, I wanted to do a quick story time for you guys. So I remember we were not even a year married, right? And so of course, going into our marriage, I had all these ideas of what intimacy was like and what was important, and what would get my husband excited to say the least. And anyway, so I just remember seeing this from different movies or whatever, and seeing women and their partner or their husband's boxer shorts. So I thought, oh, he's probably gonna think that's sexy, right? So we were getting ready to have a movie night, I think it was. We were getting ready to have a movie night. I'm telling you all our business. But anyway, so I changed into Kevin's boxer shorts. And I came out thinking, oh, he's gonna be feeling me. And it's about to get really intimate and all this stuff. So I have all these ideas in my head, right? And I come out and I'm like, Kevin, and he's like, man, why you got my boxer shorts on? I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh my God, so embarrassed. I go back to the room to change, and he comes and follows after me. I'm thinking he's gonna come to apologize. And he's like looking through his drawer. He's like, you messed up the whole order of how I had my boxer shorts. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I felt so embarrassed and just ridiculous. And so I shared that story to say, I put myself out there to say, don't allow Hollywood, first and foremost, to define what intimacy means to you and your husband, or to you and your future husband or your future wife. Don't allow Hollywood sex scenes and those hot and heavy scenes to define this is what sexy is.
And what's funny with that too is, because we watch TV so much, right?
We watch TV so much.
When we would be going to bed, I thought maybe to look cool, have her lay her head on my chest.
Oh yeah, it's like those movie scenes.
While we're trying to fall asleep, but then my shoulder would start falling asleep, and my blood circulation would start stopping. My chest started hurting. I'm like, this is not.
And I would wake up with my neck kind of sore. I'm like,
just go to that side. Let me get on this side so I can get some rest.
That's not how it was in that one
movie. On TV, it don't look like that on TV.
Hollywood, y'all be lying to us. Y'all be lying to us. But that is such an important point, and I want to really make sure that it's clear. Do not look to Hollywood or to a television to define your intimacy, or whether your intimacy is really, really hot and great, or it's not so great. that's the last place we should look towards is Hollywood, Instagram, YouTube. This is just a resource, by the way. But like on Instagram posts and Facebook posts, and that even goes into comparing your intimacy. Maybe you see a couple that's always, kissing or hugged up, or I love you, babe, and you're like, oh, me and my husband, we don't really do that. We don't say that a lot to each other. But don't define your intimacy by what you see online or what you see on TV and in the movies. Because those are actors and they are professionals and they're doing their job. So they're making it look real, or they're making it look, sexy or appealing, but they're actors. And guess what? They clock out and they go home and they collect their check. Where you are at home with your partner looking at them like, okay. So don't allow, again, Hollywood or, social media to define what your level of intimacy is. But anyway, you guys know I'm a reader. So there's this book that I wanted to share. I actually had to read this book for my human sexuality class back in undergrad. And I still kept it because there was so many good nuggets about it. And they do talk about human sexuality from a Christian perspective. It's called Authentic Human Sexuality. I have the book right here. And an integrated Christian approach. So FYI, it is from a Christian perspective. And I think under this section here where it talks about intimacy to know and to be known, I think this is so important. It says, knowing someone is there for us and that we matter to them on a day-to-day basis means that we exist in each other's minds. That was so beautiful to me. In a secure relationship, there is a demonstration of availability and acceptance, an offering of support and comfort, an expression of love. I thought that was so key because for us, I think intimacy is, we quickly learned, intimacy was more than just
sexual intimacy,
right? It's deeper than that. And there's different levels to it too. So I'm going to share like really quick about that. Intimacy for us was staying late up at night, talking in the bed, like not expecting anything, well, expecting something to happen later, but not always, right? Not always. Intimacy was just talking, laughing, having deep conversations, talking about our day, like what happened to you today? How are you doing? How are you feeling? What happened to you this week? I feel like I haven't seen you. Let's catch up. And we don't have kids, so it really helps for us to have that time. We could go an hour and a half just talking in bed and giggling, laughing, cracking jokes. So I think for us, intimacy, knowing that I was on his mind, he was on my mind day to day, having these day-to-day conversations and just deepening what we know about each other. I remember we had dated for 4 years, about 4 years before we got married. But after we got married, when we were talking late at night, I was learning so many things about him. So I would say when it comes to intimacy, couples, keep talking to your spouse. Keep asking them questions. Talk late at night in bed with one another. Just, getting to know that person. How are they feeling? How are they doing throughout the day, throughout the week? Because sometimes we can get lost in the shuffle of life and you lose that intimacy just in having conversation in bed together. So that was one huge takeaway. Along with not letting Hollywood define what our intimacy would look like. And I did find a resource also. I did mention that intimacy has levels to it, right? So there's types of intimacy, and this is from Alyssa Marie Wellness. You can also find her on Instagram. And she talks about physical intimacy, mental intimacy, spiritual intimacy, and emotional intimacy. And I love that because it's more than just the physical, right? It's more than just physical intimacy.
The reason why that's important is because we are sexual beings,
Right.
but we're not only sexual beings.
We're not only sexual
And that's good for men to know, because
Right.
sometimes when we're trying to connect with the opposite gender or female or someone we're trying to pursue, and the sexual nature within us might be natural, and we may only want to pursue that when trying to build an actual relationship with the woman, and it might throw the woman off. Not that women are not sexual beings as well,
Right.
or don't have a sex drive as well. There's a whole thing on that. But when we're limiting it to the physical sense, sometimes it throws women off, because as men, if we're not careful, we could give off the impression to a woman that you're only sexual, like, and we misinterpret or miss on the opportunity to show that there's more to this woman than her sex drive.
Right.
So there's other levels of intimacy that's important to her, that I shouldn't only be looking on the physical side if I'm trying to actually build intimacy with this woman. And I think that's why I love that you're breaking this down. It's more than the physical. It's not neglecting the physical, but it's more than the physical.
Right. So she breaks down. So let's start off with emotional intimacy, right? We're emotional beings. God made us like that, which is beautiful. Emotional intimacy, affirming, caring, interested in each other's feelings. Like I said, those late night conversations, or even in the morning, whatever works for you guys, to catch up with one another and find out what is the emotional state of my spouse. Don't leave that up to their coworker. Don't leave that up to their best friend. I need to know what is the emotional state of my spouse. Another thing that she brings up is mental intimacy. I am so grateful that I married someone who I could be mentally intimate with. And that means he mentally stimulates me. He makes me think. I make him think.
Yep.
We challenge each other. So I think that's a huge thing. If you're single or, looking for someone, does this person challenge you to go to the next level? Like, do they challenge your thought process? That's so important. And she says here, with mental intimacy, meaningful conversation, shared values and interests. We're very different with our personalities, but we do have the same values. And our interests are really interesting to talk about. He's interested in music. I'm interested in therapy and the mind and mental health. And he also has an interest in mental health as well. So I think that is so important, that mental stimulation, that mental intimacy. And she says here, meaningful conversations. And of course, we call it rich conversations. So spiritual intimacy. Oh my gosh, so key. Respect for each other's beliefs, shared purpose, nurtures each other's inner peace. I love that she brought this up. Spiritual intimacy. I think this comes up a lot in, the Christian community or just spiritual spaces, but it is something to think about. Are you spiritually compatible with this person? Are you spiritually compatible? Do they look at your prayer life as like, I don't know why she's doing that, or wasting her time doing that, or wasting his time doing that. Does their prayer life include you? Does their prayer life include you? Are they praying for you? Are you praying together? Are you taking that time to pray together? That spiritual intimacy, there's a closeness there. There's a bond there. I know when we pray, we started off doing like devotions together when we first got married. And then we were like, okay, I need my own time with God.
I just got to download.
Okay.
I just got to download.
Go ahead.
Got to download. Be very wise determining how which season. I mentioned this in the previous one, but I'm going to relate it to intimacy. Be very wise to determine which season in your dating phase, engagement phase, prior to marriage, that you not go too deep in intimacy before it's time. So spiritual intimacy is very important, because you want to be spiritually intimate with your significant other. But I've also learned that you want to be careful in your early stages of dating.
That's true.
To be careful not to go so deep spiritually together, because spirituality is very similar to your emotions, but it's not the same. So the fact that you get more connected and bonded spiritually, it can bond you to a place that makes you even closer. and may make it a little difficult for you to navigate through the different boundaries, because now you're just joining everything and being completely intimate, or too intimate before it's time. So not that you don't want to have spiritual intimacy in the dating phase, but you want to walk in wisdom in it, so that every aspect of intimacy is not completely solidified, and there's no intimacy saved for marriage that's meant to kind of go deeper.
Right. And I think, and I love that you brought up that point, because, you know, dating is, that's a whole nother topic, a whole nother channel. But dating is, you know, you're getting to know this person. You're evaluating, you know, if this is really gonna go anywhere, if this is really serious. So I think you bring up such a huge point as far as that spiritual intimacy. It may not be appropriate with this person as you're starting to get to know them, because you're still learning. Do we share the same values? You know, where's this person going with their life, their career? Do I even like them like that? You know? So I think it's so important for couples to, you know, just be aware, like spiritual intimacy is still very quite intimate. So you may not want to, you know, you're on your first date or your second, third date, you know, or you're a few months in and you're praying together all the time, because you're deepening a connection, and that relationship may not last. So you just may want to ask yourself if you really want to be praying with that person. So it's important to use wisdom in that. Okay, so spiritual intimacy, so important. We pray for each other. We pray with each other. We have our own individual relationships. Yes, so just a reminder, make sure you're praying together. And I think it's something so beautiful for your kids even to see mommy and daddy praying together before, you know, we end the night or before we go out the door for our day. One question that I'm going to start asking couples, if you are in my sphere, I'm just going to start asking you, what is the spiritual strategy for your marriage? What is the spiritual strategy for your marriage? Are you praying for your health? Are you praying for a husband? Are you praying for your wife? Are you praying for your current wife, not if you're engaged, or not if you're dating or single, but for those who are currently married, what is the spiritual strategy for your marriage? I think that is so key. We may have a spiritual strategy for everything else, and our marriage is left on the side of the road. We got to make sure we are praying for our marriage. We pray for your marriages. We pray for your relationships right before we start these episodes. So what is your spiritual strategy? And if you don't have one, start jotting some things down and start praying over your relationship. Start praying over your intimacy. Because if that thing is dead, pray that God will revive that thing. And then last, but of course not least, physical intimacy, right? Throughout this whole time, we've been talking about just these different layers, different types of intimacy. Physical intimacy, hugging, kissing, massaging, sexual touches, cuddling, proximity. Proximity is so beautiful, so powerful. So of course, physical intimacy is so important. You know, sometimes couples, they're like, you know what? When we were dating, we were always all up on each other, hugging, kissing, you know, or some people are like, you know, we had sex before marriage, but once we got married, we stopped all that hugging, kissing, and cuddling and physical proximity. That still needs to be there, okay? Your spouse needs it, you need it, your relationship needs it. You need all these different forms of intimacy, right? And of course, you need the physical part. You need the physical intimacy part as well. You need that closeness. You need that bond. There is no other bond like that bond you have with your spouse. And nobody can come in between it. You know, no one can touch you like your spouse. No one can, you know, have that proximity that you have with your spouse. And there's so many couples and so many marriages that are struggling in the day and age that we live in. And so I really wanted to make this episode because I think it's important that we strengthen the intimacy in our marriages, strengthen the emotional intimacy, strengthen the spiritual intimacy, the mental intimacy, and the physical intimacy. Don't just think, oh, you know, he put a ring on it, she put a ring on it, you know, they're always going to be there. They're always going to be attracted to me. That may not be so, you know. Your spouse has eyes. They are human beings too, you know. So I think it's important that we strengthen that intimacy. Don't ever think that, you know, I don't need to, you know, initiate that intimacy. And by the way, for us, we learned that, you know, maybe in some couples, it's only the man that initiates and not the woman, but we both initiate. We both initiate that intimacy. We both initiate, whether it be mental intimacy, emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, or spiritual intimacy in our relationship. We both do that for each other and for the sake of our relationship. And if you're looking for like any assessment that you want to do, I wanted to offer a resource, Symbis, and you can just go to symbis.com. That's spelled SYMBIS.com, and they offer it, and that stands for Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. So if you are engaged or if you're newly married, you can still take the assessment. We use this assessment a lot when we were doing premarital counseling. So you can still use this assessment, and they have love assessments on here too. So just check out their website. They also have a better love assessment. They have a better love assessment that you could use. You and your spouse can take this together. So if you're looking to just strengthen your intimacy, strengthen your bond, strengthen your marriage, check out that resource. Let us know if it was helpful to you. And again, for people who are engaged, they also have a premarital assessment on here as well. That's symbis.com. So we hope you enjoyed this mini series, the honeymoon phase. We learned so many lessons within our first 2 to 3 years of marriage, and we just wanted to share this information with you, and we hope that it blesses your relationship. We pray that you keep the comments coming. If you ever need prayer for your relationship, just let us know. You can DM me on my Instagram page, The Rich Couch, and we'll be praying for you. If you're thinking about getting couples counseling, I highly recommend it. We have gone through it. We'll probably go through it again in the near future, because it's just good to keep this intimacy going, keep us healthy, keep us strong, keep us encouraged, and keep us in this commitment lifelong. We signed up for a lifelong commitment to each other, before our friends and family and before God. So we plan on, keeping our rich relationship going and going and going. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please like, comment, subscribe, share it with a friend. Let me know what you guys think. And we look forward to talking to you soon. Again, thanks for being here on The Rich Couch, where we encourage rich conversations, rich relationships, and we want to enrich your life. See you.